long-awaited January wrap-up. I have not filmed any wrap-ups on the channel, and I actually have a pretty good reason for it. It's because my memory is really, really bad, and I finish books and a couple of days later I pretty much kind of already forget what I read and also my concrete opinions on them, so my reviews might not be the best, and that's why I've kind of been avoiding these wrap-ups. But I do love watching wrap-ups. They're my favorite videos to watch on YouTube, to be honest. Even book hauls aren't that great just because, you know, you're watching people just haul books that they don't know too much about. They haven't even read them yet, so they don't have an opinion. But wrap-ups are really great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this despite my bad memory. I do have reviews that I'll be referencing from Goodreads so that I don't forget everything completely. But yeah, let's get into this. The first book I have to talk about is The Institute by Stephen King, which I finished at the beginning of January, so a very long time ago at this point. And I don't remember all the details because, once again, my memory is not great. But I do remember that I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads when I finished it. The only thing that was kind of off for me was the pacing, and I don't know if it's all of Stephen King's books that are like this. Maybe they are. But obviously they're very long, so there are some parts that lull and some parts that are super action-packed, and it's just like, I don't know, a little bit staggering reading it because you're like, okay, and then it's happening, you're like, oh, and then it's like, okay. That's been my experience with that book, at least. Despite that, it was definitely really enjoyable. He's very good at what he does, so you can't deny that. But let me know if you guys think the same thing about Stephen King books. I feel like, for me at least, it was just less enjoyable because it was so long and because the pacing just kept kind of, not that the pacing was off. I feel like it made sense that there were some parts that lulled and some parts that were more action-packed, but I couldn't really, I don't know, my interest was not kept during the lulls, and I kind of saw myself going to do other things and not really focusing on the book and forgetting about certain parts of the book, that kind of thing. So, still an enjoyable read, I just wish they were a little bit shorter. The next book is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. So this book is very short. It is like 80 pages, like 90 pages, something very short like that. I personally really enjoyed this. It was a 4-star read for me, not only because it was short and I needed a short book to kind of, you know, cleanse my palate, but also because it has some really interesting commentary about immigration and how hard it is to become a citizen in the UK, but also in the US, because this kind of applies to different governments. This is basically, as people described it, a Black Mirror episode in a book, in a tiny little book, which I love because that show is amazing, and any book that, you know, is marketed as a Black Mirror episode, I'm gonna read it. But this was really interesting. It's definitely gonna keep your interest because it's 80 pages long, so it's not gonna be, you know, lulls or whatever. There's no lulls in this book whatsoever. It's just like, it's like an episode. It's like you're reading an episode, basically. But I really enjoyed it. I think the commentary was really great, the pacing was really great, and the concept, super interesting. There was a plot twist towards the end. Lots of great things. Really enjoyed this book. The next book we have here is one that I feel like everybody enjoyed but me, which is really unfortunate. It is Circe by Madeline Miller. So I'm gonna explain myself because I know people are gonna be like, how did you not enjoy this book? It's so good. The prose, it's so good. But I think that Circe and me are just not a match because Greek mythology has never been something that really interested me, and this is basically all about Greek mythology. All the characters are gods and goddesses. There are some mortals, but pretty much this is a book about Circe and the gods and goddesses. And I just never found that interesting, so a lot of the characters just fell flat for me. I was like, I don't really care about you guys. The only character that I actually enjoyed reading about was Telemachus. Even Circe, sometimes I was just like, girl, what are you doing? Like, she kept doing the same thing over and over. I'm not gonna spoil it, but basically, like, there are people who came to her island every time and she would do the same thing with certain people, and I was like, okay, I get it, like, confidence, we love that, and freedom, and, you know, feminism, but I don't know, it just felt a bit repetitive to me, and I definitely feel like there was a pacing thing for me as well because the middle part of it just really lagged. I wanted to be done with it. This is the kind of book that I felt like I just wanted to be done with because I wanted to review it and move on to the next book, which is never a feeling that you want to have with a book, like that you want to be done with it. I can definitely see why a lot of people love this book. Other than the beautiful prose, there was a great story, and Circe is so strong and a beautiful pillar of feminism, but I don't know, I just didn't vibe with this book, so it's definitely a me thing. I can see why people loved it, but I didn't, so. The next book we have here is one that I actually did not finish because I was in between so many books and I was reading this on my Kindle, so I feel like when I'm reading it on my Kindle, I just don't return to it as much. But I got through about 50% of it, so I feel like I could speak on it because I actually did enjoy it. This is a book called From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty, which I read on my Kindle once again, so I don't have a physical copy. This book is really interesting because it delves into the different techniques that people have for post-death processes. So, you know, there's some towns in the US that have different processes. They have open, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like, I'll put it on the screen, open something crematories. Basically, they put the body on a pyre. That happens here in the US. I actually did not know this was happening. I don't think many people do, so that's why this book is really great. And there are also some techniques that happen in other countries that are, I think, would be really weird for people who are from the US to read about, because they're like, oh my god, this is so like personal and I don't like this intimacy that's happening. So you guys would be surprised. If you read this book, it's going to be a huge shocker for you if you're from here and you're not used to like these different, you know, more unusual techniques, let's call them that. But I really enjoyed it. I wish I finished it. I'm probably going to get back to it at some point, but definitely really enjoyed this. I think this is one of those books that like teaches you a lot about things you have no idea about, so definitely recommend it. And the last book we have here, guys, I have so many thoughts on, so get ready, strap yourself in, because this is going to be a wild ride. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. So what I will give this book is that it was really fun. It was very enjoyable to read, a good sci-fi. What I will not give this book is that the writing was just not good. I did not enjoy the writing whatsoever. I feel like it was very simple, and it's hard to avoid the writing style when you're reading a book. Like, it's not one of those things where like, oh, the plot was lacking sometimes, or the characters were annoying sometimes, which they were in this book, intentionally, but also like, they were just, I'm gonna get into it. Yeah, the writing style was just not for me. Some people enjoyed it, some people didn't. I read books that have very simple prose, like Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, very simple, nothing like ornate there, but it still felt like it fit the vibe of the book, and it did kind of fit the vibe of this book, but it just, I don't know, it was just annoying to me. I kept reading it and I was like, I don't like this at all. But I'm gonna get into the other things, because I wrote a whole Goodreads review, so I won't forget any of these things, because there's a lot. So, number 2, this was very dramatic. Like, extremely dramatic, and especially towards the end, April, the main character, kept doing things that were just so confusing. Like, I understand that the whole thing was about, you know, how fame affects your mind, how it gets to your mind, but she was doing some questionable things, and I was like, girl, you are in the situation where this would not fly, but somehow you're doing it, and it's just like, why? Just why? So, very dramatic. A lot of the book was very dramatic to me. Yeah, so I wrote about how April was really unlikable. She was intentionally unlikable because this was a whole thing about how fame gets to your head and, you know, how this changes a person, but still I was just like, girl, you ain't getting any points from me. I also think there was some characters that definitely should have been fleshed out more, especially Andy, Maya, Miranda. They were all great characters, but for some reason they're just not like that. They basically were just side characters. Once again, you can make an argument that it was intentional just because it's all focused on April, but how many things can be intentional when they go wrong? I don't know. And the last thing is, or 2 more things, it gets very moral and preachy. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in the next one. If you have not watched my vlog yet, which I just posted, I'll put a little thing that you guys can click on. I put a lot of effort into it, way too much effort almost, but at the same time I'm really proud of it. So go watch it if you haven't. It is a vlog about all the bookish spots that me and Cassidy went to in New York City. So yeah, that's all for today. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.